Hey there, Homelabbers and engineers. FE Engineer here. So today I wanted to quickly go over some things that people may not be aware of and effectively try to give people a bit of an idea of if you wanted to start your own home lab, if you wanted to get started doing things, kind of what is the easiest route? What different options do you have? And so I'm going to go over a whole bunch of different things that you can do many times to start up really your own home lab for free. And with a lot of them, I'm going to focus on stuff that is free forever. I'm not going to focus on stuff that is a 12-month trial or something like that. There's plenty of those. Many of them are great. But we're going to focus on stuff that you could set up, run, and use forever for free. So taking a look, there is actually a GitHub that shows effectively a bunch of different options for cloud providers, and it talks about the free tiers as well as the stuff that is always free. This is a pretty good list of different things. On AWS, it talks about their free tier, and it talks about stuff that is in fact always free. And it goes through a whole bunch of them. So we won't spend too much time on this, but just so you know, I will have a link out to this page. So I am doing this list in a particular order. When it comes to cloud compute, honestly, my favorite one is Oracle Cloud. Their free tier, with their always free services, you can actually run 4 ARM CPU instances free forever. And I think they come with like 6 gigs of RAM each and like 50 gigs of storage for free forever. I definitely have these, and I am not supporting this, but technically if you have multiple addresses and things like that, you could potentially have multiple free accounts free forever. And they do allow you to sort of mix and match. So each one of these 4 ARM Ampere A1 computes has 1 CPU, but you can run 1 instance with 4 CPUs. You could run 2 instances with 2 CPUs. You could run 2 instances, one with 3 and one with 1, or you could run 4 separate one CPU instances and divide out your resources effectively however you want. I've been using it for probably about a year. I've never been charged anything at all by them. It's awesome. One thing to mention is that almost every single one of these cloud providers, even with their free stuff, you will have to put down a credit card, because effectively at any given time, you can walk in and change your services and go beyond the free tier, in which case they will start charging you. But I really like this Oracle Cloud. It works really well. It is exactly like virtually any other cloud provider you may have ever used. You spin up an instance, you get an SSH key, you SSH into it, and you do whatever you want. And it's great. One small caveat with this Oracle Cloud. These 4 free instances of ARM Ampere A1 compute units, they are not always 100% available. And so you may very well find that you sign up, that you select a region, which cannot be changed after you sign up, and that you go to spin up an instance and they don't have any ARM Ampere A1 units available. With that, all you have to do, come back a few days later, come back a week later, come back a month later, keep checking back. Eventually they will have them. Eventually you can spin them up. This did happen to me. I spun up some over in Germany and there were none available. And so I had to wait for a while, and eventually they did come up. And so I was able to claim all 4 of my free ones, and they are currently running right now. So let's move over to Fly.io. I have never actually used Fly.io. However, it does have one of the better services showing that you can use 3 shared CPU 1x 256 megabyte VMs. And they come with 3 gigs of storage and a decent amount of outbound data transfer. You can see that if you wanted to purchase more, they are literally $2 a month. So they're very inexpensive overall. The main thing to note here is you are limited at 256 megabytes of RAM. So depending on what you want to run, this may or may not be a reasonable option. If you wanted to run external Pi holes, this may be an okay way to go. If you wanted to run a Minecraft server, this will not get it. Moving over to Google Cloud, their free tier products are okay overall. They will allow you to have 1 VM that is up and running permanently for free. It's an okay VM. It's not crazy powerful, but it is a pretty decent, power level. I think it has 2 CPUs. It comes with 30 gigs of disk space and, kind of all the normal stuff you would expect. I do have one of these up and running all the time, and I've never had any problems. And the only thing that does happen is Google charges me 1 penny every month, it seems like now, probably just to make sure that my credit card is still active. But I do use it. It works great. I've had no problems with it. So this is a very reasonable option. Now, moving over to AWS. AWS is probably the leader in overall cloud compute and architecture. They kind of got into it very early, and it is really well built out. AWS is complicated. They have like a bazillion different services, and you have to have a reasonably good understanding of what you're trying to do to know how to use which service is the most correct for you. It is very easy to overpay because you aren't doing things in a way that are very cost effective. As far as free trials are concerned, unfortunately, they do not have any free VMs that are permanently free. They have, just like a lot of other ones, they have free storage, they have free lambdas and things like that are free forever, but they do not have any free VMs. They do have a 12-month trial of a free VM, and for people getting started and testing out Homelabbing, that very well may make sense. Moving on to Azure, it is similar to AWS overall. You can get a VM for free for 12 months, hooray, but it's only 12 months. And outside of that, you can use like Lambda functions. So these Azure functions, they're basically Lambdas. Just like Google Cloud and AWS, you can have 1 million requests a month, which is a lot, and it's always free. So if you're able to run stuff on Lambdas, then maybe this is a reasonable approach. But for most folks, if you're looking for something that you can play with and set and forget and not be paying for, unfortunately, Azure doesn't have a lot. So now switching gears, outside of cloud compute stuff, the old tried and true Raspberry Pi. You can buy a Raspberry Pi. They were cheap, they were power efficient, and they were small and easy to stack, and you could do lots of things like cluster them together into a cluster, and that was great. Unfortunately, over the past several years, the Raspberry Pi company has not effectively been able to mass produce enough, and so the costs have skyrocketed. Buying an actual Raspberry Pi directly from Raspberry Pi used to only be, anywhere from $30 to $55 or so for the actual board. It didn't come with anything else. It was just the actual board. But as you can see, a lot of them now $150, $128, $160. In my opinion, they're not worth that much. Raspberry Pis are great. I have several of them and I've used them for all sorts of things. I really, really like them. But as long as they are this expensive, it doesn't seem really worth it to me. So then if we're not going to build our Homelab on something like a Raspberry Pi, what else can we do? So when I was going ahead and editing this video that I had already created, I realized I actually forgot one of my absolute favorite things for starting out with a Homelab. If you have a little bit of a budget, but nothing crazy, but you want something that is really rock solid, that is using, brand new components, that is using high-speed cores and whatnot, these Mini-pcs are absolutely amazing. You can see I actually have one of these. I bought it for my daughter for her computer. And it runs Minecraft and it plays, the handful of games that she wants to play. And it is awesome. It is dead silent. It uses very little electricity. And this one in particular comes with 6 cores and 12 threads. It is not hard to get ones that are 8 core and 16 threads. There are Intel ones, which a lot of times have efficiency cores, which I'm not necessarily sure that would work well for a Homelab, but there's tons of different types. They use DDR4 RAM, which is dirt cheap right now. You can shove NVMe drives in them, either 1 or maybe 2, and so you can get a decent size NVMe drive. And these things are just great. They have enough connectivity to do the things you want to do. You could run a Homelab on these. And if you wanted to go something like a Raspberry Pi, while yes, it is more expensive, and I have this one in particular, and I like it. It's great. You can end up getting ones of these that are somewhat specific to the purposes that you wanted. If you wanted to run Plex, an Intel CPU would do better because of some things that are baked into the Intel chips that benefit Plex greatly for transcoding. But at the end of the day, compared to a Raspberry Pi, and I paid less than this price. These things go on sale all the time. You can find them with coupons and stuff all the time. Of course, this is just on Amazon. You can buy them from all over the place. These things, I cannot say enough good things about them. They're very small. They're basically silent. They use very little electricity. And you can pack a lot of x64 cores and threads with upgradable RAM, upgradable hard drives and stuff like that. So I cannot say enough good things. If you wanted to start a Homelab, and wanted to keep your costs down to a reasonable level, this will get you a Homelab with a good size hard drive with newer equipment compared to potentially buying an old PC off of Facebook Marketplace or buying a 8-year-old server that, you can get it for $700, but then you got to put hard drives and things like that in it. This is a great beginning one-stop shop that has enough cores, threads, RAM, and everything that you could put something like Proxmox on it and then run off of that. If you wanted to build your Homelab on consumer-grade hardware, so this is not a server really, this is basically just a PC that you are going to turn into whatever you want, and with being a consumer-grade PC, I believe about the most you're going to get is 36 threads. Your RAM is not going to be error-correcting RAM, but you can buy PCs for super cheap. And many of these PCs with consumer grade hardware have faster single core clock speeds than servers do But again, you don't have redundant power supplies, you don't have error correcting RAM and things like that. So depending on what exactly you want to do, this may be a reasonable option to get up and running quickly. When it comes to the difference of should you get something like a mini PC or should you get something like a used PC off of Facebook Marketplace, I would say the biggest question to ask yourself is, do you need PCIe lanes and do you need a PCIe graphics card? An actual card that gets shoved in. If you need an actual graphics card, these mini PCs are going to end up being complicated because you'll have to get an external graphics card thing. It's never going to really work all that well because it's not running through true PCIe lanes, and you're going to be somewhat limited. If you wanted to do AI or something like that, you wanted a big honking graphics card, etc., then, some sort of older PC off of Facebook that you can just drop a graphics card that does what you want might be a better way to go. Personally, if you don't need a graphics card or aren't doing AI really specifically, I would get a mini PC. They do have integrated graphics on their CPUs. They use laptop CPUs, and just the price you can't beat. But again, if you need an actual discrete graphics card, a older PC potentially off of Facebook that you can just drop a specific graphics card into is probably one of your cheaper ways to get up and running. Outside of that, there is eBay. eBay is probably where I tend to buy servers from the most. It's not like I buy a lot of servers, but I have a Dell PowerEdge R930 which is a giant server. These are real servers. For starting your Homelab, I would not buy these. These are rack mount servers. They are loud. They use a fair bit of power typically. It's going to depend on exactly what's in it. But if you started out with the cloud, got some free stuff, and then said, no, I want something locally that I can run and do stuff with. And so then you bought either a Raspberry Pi or bought a computer or something off Facebook, and you said, okay, I want more VMs. I need more cores. I need a real server. This is where, once you get to that point, this is what I would suggest. Go ahead and get yourself an older server that you can get, for really just a few $100s. These are real servers. They have redundant power supplies. They have error correcting RAM. They have actual server CPU chips. Because of that, they also many times have multiple CPUs inside of them. And of course, then you are getting into actual server hard drives and backplanes and all that sort of stuff. And since these are meant to be rack mounted, you may end up getting yourself a rack. And then with all of that, you'll say, I want my server always running. And so you'll get a uninterruptible power supply and things like that, and battery backups so that your server doesn't crash, because these don't particularly like having the power just cut off. So with all that, these are the directions that I typically go and that I would recommend people of. Probably start with cloud, start with something that is free forever, build whatever you want, and then from there move on to potentially getting your own hardware. And whether you wanted to go something like a Raspberry Pi or you wanted to go, an old consumer grade PC, sure. And then if you get to the point where you say, I've got like 4 PCs that I really would like to cluster, but I don't really know how to do that. I just need more VMs, more space, more RAM and stuff. At that point, you probably should be looking at a real rack mount server. Now again, fair warning, rack mount servers, they're loud, they generate a lot of heat. They take a pretty good chunk of electricity. But you can get them for cheap, and especially old ones, and they run real raids and stuff like that. Thanks so much for watching, folks. I hope this has helped some people to have a good idea of the first steps and how to continue moving along in setting up home labs and some decent direction of, depending on what you're going to do, what potentially good options are for moving forward. I hope this has helped. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching my videos, home labbers and engineers. I create and edit all of these videos on my own, so any likes and subscribes will massively help out the channel and allow me to continue creating content to help people. If you got value out of this, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel to be notified when new content drops. If there's something I've not covered but you would like to see a video on it, please leave a comment down below. And again, a massive thank you to everyone. I hope you have a great day.